Indianapolis This Week.
This bill is not about discrimination. And if I thought it was about discrimination, I would have vetoed it.
The Religious Freedom Act now signed into law. So what does it mean for Indiana? And is the fight really over? Plus, getting ready for the Final Four in the Circle City. We go inside what you can expect from a full week of events.
TV 6, the Indy Channel. This is Indianapolis This Week with Rafael Sanchez.
Thank you for joining us for Indianapolis This Week. We begin with a story that has dominated the news and social media this week. The Religious Freedom Act, now law in our state. Governor Pence signed the act at a private ceremony on Thursday morning, releasing this photo from the event. At a news conference afterward, Pence defended the bill, saying it's not about discrimination, despite sharp criticism from around the country that the act will open the door to legalizing discrimination against the LGBTQ community. Pence also told reporters he would have vetoed the bill if he thought it would have done that.
I support the freedom of religion for every Hoosier of every faith. What I can say to you, and I think Hoosiers deserve to hear it, this legislation has never eroded anti-discrimination laws anywhere in the United States of America, ever. The way this has been portrayed by some of you in the media, I understand the concerns. People don't know this has been federal law since 1993. People don't know that this is already the law in 30 states. And people think this somehow limits individuals' freedom. This limits the freedom of the government to intrude upon people's deeply held religious beliefs. That's what this does. That's why Teddy Kennedy supported it. That's why President Clinton signed it. That's why then State Senator Barack Obama voted for it in the state Senate in Illinois. And I understand, you know, the issues and the environment in the day, but look, this was overdue in Indiana. Okay? We should have done this a long time ago.
As for the companies and conventions threatening to take their business out of Indiana because of the new law, Pence says he expects state officials will call them to explain the bill will try to keep them in the Hoosier state. So what does this exactly do? What does this new law mean? One legal professor at the IU School of Law agrees with Governor Pence. And Daniel Conkle says the Religious Freedom Act will not allow businesses to simply refuse service to anyone they choose, including members of the LGBTQ community.
It absolutely is an oversimplification, and to me it's quite distressing. I'm not only a legal scholar and a proponent of gay rights and same-sex marriage, but I'm also a citizen of this state, and frankly I find it distressing to see the state of Indiana perceived as being hostile to gays and lesbians.
And our conversation continues. Joining us now is Katie Blair with Freedom Indiana, the group that led the charge against the Religious Freedom Act. Katie is also the Director of Advocacy for the ACLU of Indiana. Katie, welcome to the program. You just heard from the governor saying that this is not about discrimination. What say you?
Well, LGBT Hoosiers are not a protected class here in Indiana, and this law would make it legal for them to be discriminated against. It already is legal, and this would just put emphasis on that. If he wanted to fix this bill and make it not discriminatory, he would have added the amendment that made LGBT Hoosiers a protected class in Indiana.
He mentions that 30 states already have this. We heard from a legal scholar who says this is much ado about nothing, in the sense that it will not have a major impact on the LGBTQ community. Do you believe that businesses will refuse service to people because of their orientation or their religion?
Absolutely, I think that they will. I think this gives a license to discriminate, and it really is a direct backlash of the gains that the LGBT movement has made in Indiana over the past year.
So are we looking at months and years of lawsuits? I mean, what's next in this fight?
Yes, as all of the negative consequences of this bad bill come to light, there will be increased legal battles all around our state, wasting tons of taxpayer money.
So what will you do next? Because obviously Freedom Indiana has been very outspoken on this issue, and HJR 3, which you won in the last cycle. What's next?
Well, we've mobilized over 60,000 actions in this state to try to get the governor and our legislators to listen to us. We're not going anywhere. We wish we didn't have to be part of this fight. We wish that the fight was over with HJR 3 and with getting the freedom to marry, but it's not. So we're going to stick around and make sure that we remain vigilant.
And do you think the impact on the businesses, Salesforce, Cummins, Lilly, all these different organizations saying the Disciples of Christ Church, which may not have its convention in 2017, is that helping you make the argument that this law is just not right for Indiana?
Exactly. It's giving a bad impression of Indiana is getting a bad impression around the country, and it's embarrassing, and it's not the Hoosier way.
Is this a political fight? Because Hoosiers are getting a bad rap, but Hoosiers went to work on Thursday. They did not pass this bill. This was done by a legislature. What do people need to do to get involved? I mean, so, you know what I mean? Because at the end of the day, people are calling all Hoosiers as if they were ignorant. But this was not a Hoosier decision.
Exactly. No, it wasn't. It was our legislators. And what people need to do is they need to join on board with Freedom Indiana. You can go to freedomindiana.org to get alerts from us and follow us on social media. There's also a large rally planned for Saturday afternoon at 1 at the State House. Over 2,600 people have signed up to attend.
Katie Blair, thank you so much. We appreciate your time. Please come back and keep us posted as this continues to obviously go through the many avenues of the State House. Thank you so much. Coming up, we bring in our political insiders on the long-term fallout of the Religious Freedom Bill, plus the shakeup in the U.S. Senate. Next on Indianapolis This Week. Back to Indianapolis This Week, we have a jam-packed roundtable with our political insiders, Abdul Hakim Shabazz, Pete Seat, look who's back, Kip 2, City County Councilor, and of course, the one and only Mary Beth Schneider. How are you? The big topic of the week, the Religious Freedom Act. Plenty to say about that.
And everybody from Washington to basketball to here has been saying it. No matter what you think of the Religious Freedom Recovery Act, is this bad for Indiana? Is this really hurt our image? And does it hurt Mike Pence going forward?
Well, I don't think there's any doubt that the answer to both of those questions is yes. We've seen what's happened since then. The NCAA has issued statements that they're worried about it. We've had a couple of conventions say that they're worried about it. It's whatever you think of the law, the aftermath of it certainly is not positive.
It's not positive in the sense that people haven't taken a step back and actually read what's in the legislation. It's 4 pages long. There's not much there. It gives individuals an opportunity in a court of law, if they have litigation, to use religious freedom as a defense. It doesn't mean the courts will agree with them. And we already saw, you used conventions as an example, Gen Con threatened before this was signed into law that they wouldn't come. They've already reversed because they actually took the time to do some research and talk to businesses in Indianapolis and realize it's not what it's all cracked up to be.
But the thing is, though, we really shouldn't be having this discussion at all, because the folks who promoted this from day one, and I believe in religious liberty and freedom as much as the next guy, should have come out from the day one and said, we are not doing this for discrimination. Of course, somebody should have done it to Eric Miller, but we're doing this for religious freedom. They should have been putting out that message from day one.
But in fact, they voted down an
the fact that Governor Mike Pence had to sit there and for like an hour and explain all this, like, you shouldn't be doing this today right after you sign it. This should have been done back on day one, and we wouldn't be here right now.
Well, here's the thing that I think that Pete gets wrong. Go to Eric Miller's website, Advance America, Indiana, and he says why the bill passed. And I think he was the chief proponent of it. He's the reason it got passed. You know that's the case. And he says basically that Christian companies, bakeries and whatnot, do not have to serve homosexuals. That's what the point of the bill was. And to say it wasn't is being disingenuous about what the whole fight was about during the legislative process.
I'm sure Eric Miller appreciates you putting this all on him. I haven't even heard about him in this legislation until yesterday. I pay attention to what the governor says, to what the legislators say, and I agree. When you're explaining, you're losing. And the governor, the legislator, should have done a better job explaining this to Hoosiers, but I'm not listening to Eric Miller. I'm reading the actual legislation legislation, the black and white paper.
Well, Eric Miller stood right behind the governor at the signing. I think it's pretty clear he was a big voice in pushing for this. As far as Gen Con goes, they have not said that they will not continue to renew their contract. They already had a contract in Indiana through 2020, and the question is whether they'll continue that after that.
They've reversed their position. They threatened, and now they said they're
What
staying.
about the optics of this? I mean, listen, the governor's very principled. He believes in faith. He's very clear about prayer. I was just surprised that for a governor who talks about God openly and believes in that he did not just sign the bill in an open fashion and say, this is what I believe. And so instead what we got was a picture with a bunch of nuns and monks, whom I respect as well. Why wasn't it open? Why not just say, I believe in this?
The thing is, and once again, it goes to the whole optics thing. On any other given day, the governor signs dozens of bills, privately. They have people, we get the pictures of, this lawmaker signed this bill for this highway. Nothing out of the ordinary. The problem is, once again, it's against the backdrop of people not explaining what this bill did early on, and now every little thing that pops up that normally wouldn't be an issue is now an issue.
Isn't one problem also, though, that they have read the bill, and I'm sure that all these companies that are now looking at it and the NCAA have attorneys that are looking at the bill. And the problem with the bill is that it is so vague. It can mean almost anything depending on your point of view. And so maybe this is one where I do agree with Pete. It'll be up to a judge, and then a judge will have to decide.
Yeah, this isn't over by any stretch.
The Indiana Chamber of Commerce and the Indianapolis Chamber of Commerce were quoted in the paper on Friday that they both oppose the bill. So, I mean, to me, and you have to look at who's supporting the bill and who's against the bill to figure out what really is going on with the bill. Eric Miller and his folks were for the bill. You had the entire business community in the state of Indiana and the city of Indianapolis oppose the bill. You can say it's about whatever it is. The facts are people are worried about what this does to business in Indiana.
So the date to pay attention to is going to be July 30th, because by then somebody will have done something to someone, because the bill doesn't go into effect until July 1, and a lawsuit will be filed, and that's when all what is going to break loose, and that's when we'll finally have an idea of what this really does.
Chapman, go ahead.
Yeah, and I think you're wrong in this sense that facts,
the
facts are the law, Kip, not public perception. And what is in the law is what matters, and what the courts ultimately do is what matters, but it doesn't give them carte blanche.
So why did they pass the law?
To give people the opportunity to use as a defense religious freedom. And the court will ultimately decide if they think that that's worthy of a ruling.
And why do they think that needed to be done?
Well, could you read the papers just as much as I do, Kip?
And who are they trying to protect?
There are individuals who have deeply held religious beliefs.
Exactly.
And there's nothing wrong with that.
No, there isn't anything wrong with should they be able to stop a homosexual couple from walking into their store and be served?
And this will now be in a court of law.
Okay.
And we can come back and talk about it then.
Do Democrats now have a platform for 2016, 2017? Is this the issue that will now drive people to the polls for the Democrats who, as we know, are not at the State House in any large numbers?
The potential for this, and I think a lot of it depends on what happens with any possible future litigation, but when I speak to individuals who are lifelong Republicans, do not live in Marion County, older, white, I mean, these are hardcore Republicans, and they tell me, I'm starting not to recognize the Republican Party anymore. This means that we're nearing a potentially crisis mode, and folks better get in front of this real fast, real quick.
Another big issue this week, of course, shakeup possibly in the Senate. We've just heard, of course, that the senior senator from Indiana, Dan Coates, will not be seeking a re-election for another term. And then we also heard that the minority leader in the Senate from Nevada, Harry Reid, will not be seeking re-election. What does this mean in the future, not only for the country, but our state?
Well, it means Chuck Schumer is probably going to be the Senate minority leader, and it means on the Republican Party in Indiana, I think a pretty wide open looking at the race, but I don't expect very many will go to the post. Pete, you know Eric Holcomb really well. You worked with him at the state party. He's already announced this week. So is he the front runner?
In full disclosure, I've helped him with the announcement, so folks out there know. He is a good friend, a former boss. Also bittersweet to see Dan Coates leave. I worked for him previously as well on the 2010 campaign, traveled around the state with him. But on Harry Reid, I mean, I'm not a morning person, but I sprung out of bed this morning when I saw the news that he was retiring. It is only the second best day in the Senate in the coming years. The best day will be when he actually leaves.
And I think he was just calling you, letting you don't have to get too excited because he has another 2 more years to do his job. What does it mean for the rest of the field? Because a number of GOP folks seem to be interested in this job.
Let me put it this way. The day we broke the story that Senator Coates wasn't running, the first thing I started doing was putting up a big giant chart to see which Republican in Indiana, first going to be which Republican in Indiana was running, then turned into which Republican was not running. I mean, I don't think there'll be anybody left at the State House or on Rayburn Street when this is all said and done. I do think it's going to be a classic story of the ideological divide with the Republican Party. Somebody like Mr. Holcomb, who was much more mainstream. You have the Marlon Stutzmans of the world that are much more ideological, and I think we'll see that replay over again.
Kip, you have 30 seconds. Is this Barron Hill's seat to run for the Democratic Party?
Well, I think Barron's probably most likely going to run. He hasn't said he is going to run, but there are other people inside the Democratic Party who are looking at this as well. You've got locally Christina Hale, a state representative in her third year at the General Assembly. You have Mayor Tom McDermott Hammond, who I think is going to take a look at it, and a surprise, Joe Andrew, the former Democratic National Chairman, is someone who also is taking a look at this.
Our conversation will continue on Twitter. Thank you so much. You can join Mary Beth, Pete, Kip, Lara, and Abdul and jump into the conversation throughout the week. Next, the road to the Final Four, as you know, ends in our city. A week before the big game, what you can expect and what you must do if you want to enter Lucas Oil Stadium. Welcome back to Indianapolis This Week as we turn our focus now to the week ahead and the tens of thousands of basketball fans coming to Indianapolis for the Final Four. The championship floor arrived at Lucas Oil Stadium on Friday, and while the games are the main focus, organizers here wanted to be a week-long celebration with events well beyond the court. I sat down with Indiana Sports Corporation President Ryan Vaughn, who also has a special alert for you if you're planning to head downtown. Ryan, thank you for joining us.
Happy to be here.
Listen, so we're getting ready for one of the biggest games in America, the NCAA Final Four. Are you ready for the 60,000 people plus who will be visiting our city?
We're certainly getting there. We're, I think, 13 days away or so. We've got a lot to prepare for. We've got music festivals, we've got fan fest to get engaged, we've got stadiums to finish, but we're ahead of pace and enjoying it and very excited about the opportunity to host.
There were some safety concerns when it comes to IPL. There were some underground incidents. The company has stepped up inspections to make sure all is safe. Are you confident that IPL will provide a safe environment for all the pedestrian traffic around the stadium?
We are. IPL has been communicating with us and the NCAA and Homeland Security, and feel very good about what they're doing, and really appreciate their transparency and the way that they're communicating with us and keeping us apprised of what's happening. So we feel good about the event.
Quite a sight as we look outside. 2015 NCAA Final Four. Thank you for the set.
You're welcome. Absolutely. We built it just for you.
and we appreciate that. What does this really mean for the city? I mean, many people may think, oh, it's just another basketball game, but this is bigger than just another basketball game.
It really is, and our community does these major events so well. I mean, this is 2,200 volunteers of all ages, of all races, of all financial wherewithal, engaged, actively working in our city to offer Hoosier hospitality. It's really quite amazing. We've done training sessions all week, and it's great to see the people pour in and how excited they are to host this event. It's rehabilitating basketball courts in Concord neighborhood and JTV Hill. It's activating youth through our youth clinics and through the dribble, and all we're going to do at Fan Fest. So it's really much more than just the game, which is always our ethic. It's got to be about more than the game. But in the meantime, we also get to have 3 fantastic basketball games that weekend.
Is it becoming easier for us to do this in the sense that we've hosted a Super Bowl over there as a city, right?
Right.
We've the Indianapolis 500. The Angie's List Grand Prix. Right. Is this easy for Indianapolis? Is this sort of just hey, we can just do this?
Yeah, it's not easy, but it is what we're known for, and we do it well. We have a national reputation for being one of the best cities to host a major event. This is our 7th Final Four. We'll execute our 8th in 2021. So in one sense, it's easier knowing and having an expectation of what the event is like, but in another sense, it's very challenging because we like to push the envelope every time. What are we doing bigger and better than we did the last time? And so with each Super Bowl and each Final Four and each major event, we like to get the community more involved. We like to leave legacies in our community, like the refurbished basketball courts and the youth clinic programs. So it's never easy, but it's always a great opportunity for us to continue to develop that reputation and push the envelope on what we're leaving in the community.
You want folks to have a great time, but more importantly, you want this to be a safe and secure event. So everyone should be encouraged to, as I kidded you, this would be our man purse?
Yeah, this is the European carry-all if you're a gentleman.
But what do you want all our visitors to know before they come to the stadium? Why is this important?
Yeah, this is a clear bag policy for the Final Four. So if you're heading into the stadium, you can either bring your own clear bag or you'll need to pick up one of these in a lot of places downtown.
Free?
Hotel, free, absolutely free. Hotels, restaurants, we'll even have people walking around downtown handing them out. So no purses. So bring, pack everything that you want to take in your clear bag, and then you can use this also to carry around merchandise and things of that nature if you're buying it at the event or at FanFest.
What do you want folks, we don't know what teams will be here yet.
Right.
Soon we'll find that out.
Right.
What do you want people to take away from this Final Four? And this championship game?
Sure, just a great sense of community pride. I think people are going to be very impressed and very excited about what we're able to do for our city, about all the jobs that are created when these people come into town and spend money and stay in our hotels, and the sense of community that we get to project to the rest of the country and the world about who we are and our values and our ethics and the legacy that these events leave in our town. And they're really just great moments to celebrate what we do best in the city, and that's host major sporting events.
And don't forget your man purse, right?
That's right.
Your plastic bag. Ryan Vaughn, thank you so much. Best of luck.
My pleasure. Thank you.
And thank you for the view.
Anytime.
A great view indeed. Plenty of activities to enjoy as the Final Four is days away. Most events begin next Friday. We have a link to these events in the hot button section of our website, theindychannel.com. You're watching Indianapolis This Week.